This is the IUFoST Scientific Information Bulletin on Food Fraud Prevention. I'm John Spink. I'm Director of the Food Fraud Initiative at Michigan State University. I'm also an assistant professor in the College of Veterinary Medicine at Michigan State University. If you need more information on this topic of food fraud, please feel free to see our website, noted below. We have a wide range of information, links, resources, and other products. First off, for a short introduction of IUFoST and the SIBs. IUFoST is the International Union of Food Science and Technology, and a global scientific organization with more than 200,000 members worldwide. The focus is on science and technology related to food. The scientific information bulletins are brief outlines to just provide an overview on the topic for each of these type of new concepts, and it's really created as a reference point or starting point for future research. A summary of the food fraud prevention SIB. First off, food fraud and the focus on prevention is an important and evolving food industry focus. Food fraud has been occurring since the beginning of commerce, but really recently, with a wide range of issues such as melamine in pet food and horse meat in beef, there's been a heightened awareness of food fraud, and really with globalization and the widespread testing technology and just a focus that there's a higher risk for companies and for entire economies. Even though the vast majority of these incidents do not have health hazard, in some ways they are more dangerous because the substances and actions are unknown and untraceable. With traditional food safety issues, such as implementing a HACCP program, we know what we're looking for, pretty much. The case with food fraud, we don't, because many times the action or the adulterant substance, the chemical, is really unknown. And that's something that, or unexpected. And that's something that we had with melamine, that there's no reason that melamine should be in food in any sizable quantity, and yet the criminals found a way to use it. So we weren't looking for it. And specifically with pets in the U.S., their pets were getting sick, and we didn't know why they were at first. And it took a while to figure that out. Also, the adulterant substances and the food fraud is untraceable. With horse meat and beef, we didn't know the horse meat was in there. So if there was a problem, a normal traditional food safety problem with that horse meat, we couldn't trace it because we didn't even know it was in the product. The types of food fraud stretch the traditional role of food science and technology to include criminology, supply chain traceability, and other control systems. This is really something that's important and very challenging for the field of food science. If this is a microbe, we would naturally go to the field of microbiology. But in this case, it's a human perpetrator. So going to social science and criminology is the key. And this is something that's very different for normal food science research. Also, supply chain traceability. So there's the science of following, monitoring, and optimizing product as it moves through the supply chain. This is not just traceability of knowing where a product is and how to find it, but it's the entire system of how supply chains become efficient. Combining these two plus others is a way to look at and understand why product moves and why criminals will understand that there's an opportunity. So if we're trying to optimize the role of science and technology, we really need to work first to understand the entire system or the product matrix it's operating in, it's moving in, and the nature of the problem being the human actor. The food authenticity and integrity testing will be the most complex actions, and their value should be assessed in terms of the contribution to prevention. Probably by the end of this video, this is something that's going to be very normal and common for you. But a real key is that we have a lot of great science and testing technology for authenticity, but we need to know what we're testing for and what we do, how it prevents. A key is if you walked into a doctor's office, the first thing they do would not give you an MRI. They'd first analyze you. Do you have a cold? Do you have a broken leg? Or do you have cancer? And depending on their initial assessment, they would put in place different ways to investigate you, essentially. And that's what we need to do with food fraud as well. And this SIB was put together to really look at and focus on the fundamentals of prevention and then provide insight on the optimal role of food science and technology. Food fraud. We'll cover just a little bit of the basics that are in the SIB. So food fraud is illegal deception for economic gain. This sounds very simple, but yet extremely broad, and it is. We'll cover it in more detail here. First off, to step back, to look at food fraud in relation to other food risks. So what we've got here is food quality in one corner, because most of these actions are managed under food quality or quality assurance within a corporation or even within a government. And then you've got food safety and food defense. These are normal, traditional for us. We understand these. In food fraud, when we're understanding the motivation for prevention, food fraud is a fundamentally different concept in the way we look at the vulnerability. When you look at the left-hand column, that's unintentional. Those actions are unintentional. For food fraud and food defense, they are intentional. A disgruntled employee that's trying to harm a company is food defense, is the motivation. They are not acting for personal economic gain. They're acting to harm. And then for food fraud, the motivation is economic gain. And again, this is a very key point, because the fraudsters are actually business people. They're looking to make money. So when we look at countermeasures and control systems, we really need to focus on things we can put in place that reduce their ability to make money. Also, food fraud is more than just adulterant substances, and this is very much a key for food science and technology, because a business or a country is impacted by all types of food fraud. It can be economically devastating, and many types of food fraud can lead to a public health threat. So from an article in the past, 2011, we published food fraud types, and a couple that I'll point out are, first, adulteration or adulterant substances. We've shifted to using the phrase adulterant substances because adulteration and adulterated has a lot of different meanings, and it's very broad beyond intentional acts for economic gain. So something such as the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act in the U.S., adulterated foods could be spoilage. That could be legitimate product that just happens to spoil. So that's not an intentional act. So there's sometimes some confusion there. So we stick to adulterant substances. And the other one that we see that we'll cover is the theft and diversion or gray market. So this is legitimate product that is sold outside its supply chain or has been illegally re-entered into the supply chain. Even though this is genuine product, there's two problems here. One is we don't know how the product has been handled. So that product could have been mishandled and spoiled of some way. But also, stolen goods and gray market product, when products outside our control, there's an opportunity for other things to occur, such as counterfeiting. So when there's theft or gray market product entering the market, it shows that we have a lack of control, a lack of transparency in the supply chain. That's where there is a vulnerability. And our goal is to prevent or to reduce vulnerabilities. And finally, the one we'll cover here is counterfeiting or intellectual property rights infringement. This is where all aspects of the product are fake and illegal, the packaging, the product, even the distribution system. The two areas where there will be the most public health threat is the adulterant substances and counterfeiting. But again, key is that to have a holistic perspective, to prevent food fraud across the spectrum, we need to consider all types of food fraud. Food fraud prevention. So there's a hierarchy here. Detect, deter, and prevent. Detect is obviously to find the product, and that's the main role of food science and technology. Deter is to combat a specific type of action, such as putting melamine in product. Then when we put control plans in place that detect melamine, we are deterring the action of melamine. But prevent is the ultimate goal, and we do have to think about all these control measures and countermeasures working together to reduce the fraud opportunity and focus on prevention. Criminology. So the field of criminology has studied a concept called situational crime prevention since the early 70s. And there's literally been thousands of articles and research, empirical data, and empirical analysis of this concept. What situational crime prevention does is looks at the space of crime, where crime occurs and why, and starts to try to understand the core factors. If we understand the core factors, then we can change those, we can influence them. And two theories that build into situational crime prevention are, one is routine activities theory. So it is what it says it is someone that's operating normally every day in their routine activities can perceive a fraud opportunity. For us in the food supply chain, that could be a driver, that could be a company that, someone that manufactures product or sells product into the supply chain. They have routine activities involved with food. And so we can look at those routine activities, learn from crime science, and then put those prevention plans in place. Rational choice theory is what it says it is. Criminals think they're making a rational choice. They do not think they're going to get caught. So, for some reason, they think they are rational. If we understand why they think it's rational to commit this type of fraud, then hopefully we can put plans in place that lead them to think it is irrational. The goal for every part of this is to reduce the fraud opportunity. The fraud opportunity is the core of everything. And on the right here, you'll see the fraud opportunity. So it's a triangle made up of 3 legs. One is the victims. That could be a consumer not getting the product they think they're getting. Could be a retailer. Could be a brand owner not getting the sale for their product. And it could be governments not getting taxes. The fraudsters on the bottom are all the people that could be committing fraud. And then on the other side is the guardian and hurdle gaps. A key is that there are processes in place, but they're not necessarily refined to prevent food fraud. And we say guardian and hurdle gaps because the criminal is constantly evolving, and so the fraud opportunity is evolving. And this side of the triangle is where we really need to focus for our countermeasures and control systems. The role of science and technology. We cannot test our way to safety, and we cannot arrest our way to prevention. And this is a real key. We have a lot of law enforcement that's working very hard in this area. We also have a lot of testing technology that's working very hard in this area. But really, as we say with food safety as well, is we can't test our way into food safety. We need to change the processes. And that's the same way with thinking of prevention and arresting. It's not like there's 4 or 10 specific fraudsters in the world and we can go arrest 8 of them. A key is that there's a wide range of people that commit these types of acts. The goal is not to catch food fraud, but to prevent it. I'm going to stop here for just a minute and let that one sink in. When we're conducting food science research, we're trying to confirm that we can find what we're looking for. And we need to go out there and measure that detection. But a key is food fraud. We're not trying to catch it in the marketplace. We're trying to prevent it. That's fundamentally different from a lot of the other things we do. So we want to have great plans in place and countermeasures and tests. But really the bad guys need to know that we are testing. Because if they know we're testing for melamine and we have great test methods and we have several types of test methods, then they need to know that. If they don't know that, all we're going to do is catch the melamine, and that's a problem. So the goal is to prevent it. We're not trying to catch it. We're trying to persuade the criminals to not commit the act. And again, this is something that we just don't usually cover from the social sciences. We just don't cover that usually in food science. Start with one or more simple countermeasures or control strategies. And this is Crime Science 101, is to look at what's going on in the space and start with some simple control measures, especially if there are, say, 2 or 3 different types of control measures that are very simple but very different. If you think about the way that your credit card or your ATM machine works when you have a PIN and you have the card, those are some different ones that started out very simple. And they added on extra security features as there were more risks. Develop specific or advanced technologies as needed. As your credit card and your ATM PIN number or personal information for human resources, as those technologies are increasing, they're increasing because we have more advanced fraudsters and more costs in that fraud side, so the countermeasures improve. And that's exactly what we can apply in food science. With that, I'll say thank you. If you have any more questions or require information, please feel free to contact us or look on our website. And this video also is available at the link above. Thank you very much.